You want me to kick this off, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, go for it, Stephen.
Okay, so I help answer some of the questions that go to the NCL info, and a lot of questions came up last semester about where's the class for NCL. I don't see where the class is, and the misperception is we don't actually have an NCL class. What we have is resources that and a syllabus that shows how you can incorporate the NCL competition into your classroom and into your classes or courses, and also some other resources that you could use for the students to practice for the NCL competition as part of that class. For example, NDG-Net labs or InfoSec labs and their puzzles, and how you can take the gym and use that as part of the curriculum as well. So that's kind of what we talk about NCL in the classroom. That's what we're talking about. How do you incorporate it in the classroom? And I know Caitlin may have more to say about that.
Well, for my class, it was actually really easy. My class's curriculum is based around the CompTIA Security Plus, and so is NCL, which means it lined up perfectly. And as I was going through any lesson that I saw something that was similar to an NCL challenge, it was always really great to try to recreate those challenges and show the kids like, oh, we're learning this. This is how they do it in NCL to apply this skill. So that kind of comes with just having like participated in the past and knowing kind of the form and the function of how they're going to set up challenges and what the challenges are going to look like for each section. And for me, it was just like, oh, we happen to be talking about RSA encryption. Let me bring up this really cool RSA challenge that I did last season. Or we're talking about image metadata, and my kids could not wrap their heads around it with the lab, with the textbook. So I just pulled up, I actually still had the file, and I just started asking questions based on what I could see. I didn't even have the questions in front of me. I just knew where I had saved the image on my server. And it's so great when you have that to fall back on when they're not really like understanding the lesson. And then all of a sudden you put it in a challenge scenario with flags and points, and they're like, oh, I got this. And I feel like I was definitely that student that I didn't know what the heck any of my teachers were talking about. And then I would see something in NCL, I would connect the dots, and all of a sudden it started to make sense. Because like I said, NCL is the application of these skills. When you learn them in the textbook, it's really hard. But NCL makes you apply them in a pretty realistic way. I think they set up the scenarios in a way that's as similar to real world examples as you can, recreate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I found that by having those puzzles as part of the curriculum, even in other classes that we may not be using the NCL, it does encourage the students and gives them a good feeling about where they maybe have areas they need to work on. And it helps the professors as well look at what our course content may not be meeting that, or the way our approaches may not be good enough getting through the students, especially since all our courses are online. It can be a very challenging time for the students, and so I think that helps.
One of the best things I think about incorporating NCL into the classroom is if you see a trend, like if you see an entire competency area where no one in your group was able to get any of the challenges, you know that's just a lack in instructional materials. I know that I struggle in, I think it's enumeration and exploitation, and I know that I personally lack a little bit of like the stronger, reverse engineering coding knowledge for that section. And I noticed that everybody that I teach also like struggles in that area, even if they're proficient in code, because, I'm not providing the extensive instruction. So it lets me know where I'm kind of like falling short as an instructor.
That's very good points. I know that we know that from our curriculum, there's certain areas that we just don't teach in detail, like cryptology, at the community college level. And in our program, we're more operate and maintain type of courses. We're training technicians to be in the operations area. And so our students struggle in that area, but we let them know about it. We said, you can go out on your own, and we try to give them resources to go do some more research on their own to help. When they go, if they transfer to the 4-year, they're usually going to pick it up with our articulation agreements with our 4-year universities and whatnot.
For cryptography specifically, I love cryptography, i.e. my name's Crypto Kate. You can actually go to my blog. I have one called like an introduction to cryptography. It's just basically like all the historical cryptography that I find really cool. But if you can master identifying and using tools to work with those specific cryptographies, you'll master at least the easy and medium challenges in NCL. Like it's very much based in historical cryptography and where cryptography came from. And if you're also looking for additional resources on that, the code book by Simon Singh is like my Bible. But my blog is cryptokate.wordpress.com. It's spelled just like my username, Kait. I link to it on my Twitter as well, which is also just at CryptoKate. Everything's CryptoKate because I'm obsessed with cryptography.
Yeah, that's when we were talking about some of the tools like the labs and whatnot. Something we did that we have out on the website actually is a syllabus that includes some of the NICE challenge activities. And I don't know if anyone's ever used a NICE challenge, but we're doing this as a pilot this semester for our capstone class. And the feedback I'm getting from the students is that they think it's a good tool to prepare them for the NCL. And these students have all been through the NCL before because they're in their capstone class. But I don't know if anyone, but it's a good thing to look at. And that we just picked out this time, since it's a pilot, some of the easier challenges in the NICE challenge.
One of the things about incorporating NCL into your classroom too is that it gives students an opportunity to put supplemental materials with their resume. Like one, you list your CTF experience on your resume. But I've never gone into an interview since I started competing in NCL where I wasn't asked about my NCL experience. And frequently when I run into questions in the interview that I don't know the answer to because I'm relatively new to the field, I can say, I don't know the answer to that, but this is how I approach challenges that I don't know the answer to. And I reference something that I didn't know when I approached the challenge and was able to conquer it during the NCL season. So just getting that first CTF on your resume gives them something to really like talk about in the interviews. And I once had a Google recruiter tell me not even to apply if I didn't have any form of hackathon experience. It really does make your resume stand out. And for me, I've been trying to figure this out, but NCL is the single best first competition for somebody in cybersecurity. What it does differently than others is that it's broken down by very specific skill sets. And then those skill sets are broken down into easy, medium, and hard. So it's very easy for you to kind of work through what you can and then try to take the next step. And you know what the next step is because they're ranked easy, medium, hard. So if you get all the easy, then you should try to get the medium. And once you get all the medium, then you should get the hard. And if you're going into a section that you're not very good at, you're not going to start with the hard challenges. You want to start with the easy challenges. And all the skills really build on each other. So as you achieve, easy and then medium and then hard, you're just kind of building a base skill set. Because the hard challenges aren't that they're hard. It's that, do you know everything from easy and medium? And then can you apply them in usually like differently thought ways?
We have a post from Doug. This is a very good book on cryptography Decrypted. So thank you, Doug. But I have a question related to that because sometimes I think that students look at these books on cybersecurity, especially as they get into the technical areas, and they feel intimidated. But I'd like to know if playing a competition like NCL as part of the course can help make what's in the textbook more meaningful. can actually spur students to want to read about this because of their hands-on experience in the competition. Do you find that the NCL can kind of motivate them to read more on these topics?
Yeah, I think it does.
Answer first, Steve?
I think it, well, we tried it in our syllabus and in our weekly assignments. We try to tie that reading in the textbook and try to point out where that is going to tie into the NCL competition and what labs they need to look at for that particular challenge. So,
as a grad student, I don't really want to read any more than I really have to. So it doesn't inspire me to read more books. It inspires me to read more specific technical documentation on a specific thing, which I think is different because you're not getting as broad of an overview and you're not learning as many skills, but you're really drilling down into specific skills. I know other people like go out and they want to, I found the code book by Simon Singh because of NCL and like, it's my favorite book ever, but it's the only like book that I've picked up and read on purpose because I read a lot in textbooks because grad school. But I know that I have a large stack of books that I want to read as soon as I graduate and, don't have to read, if that makes any sense. So there's like a pile of them on my bookshelf that are just like waiting to be read when like reading isn't mandatory, if that makes any sense. I think as a student, it's very hard to want to read anything ever.
Well, I think, in terms of attention span and what we've become used to, books are kind of old fashioned now. So the people want information in ways that are perhaps more accessible.
Dan?
So that's why with like Rumpkin, with cryptography, I like the website Rumpkin because it's broken down into like really tiny sections on like very specific things. I think it could be a little more organized, but I'm working on doing that for my website. But when you break it down to smaller parts and then drill in, it's a lot more approachable than trying to read like a whole book and like learning a bunch of stuff that you don't care about on the side. Like NCL forces you, if you're interested, you really, really drill in on the one thing that you're interested in and you can get really good at that. And then once you're really good at that, you just want to get really good at something else. So you kind of get to like bounce around a lot more and have a shorter attention span and still learn an insane amount of information.
I think we had a question from the audience. Did someone want to ask a question?
Yeah, Dan, this is Doug Spindler. Hey, Kate,
Yeah,
I've got a question. I got a question for you. I used to teach with Sam Bone, and he does a malware analysis class. And he said, look, you don't have to know code. You have to know a little bit of code. And in order to understand what's going on with malware, you're not trying to decrypt, if you will, or understand cryptography. You're not a crypto analyst. All you're trying to do is break the code. Would you agree with that? Which means you don't have to have the theory. You don't have to have the understanding. You don't need the math background. All your goal is to crack it and read the message.
Well, I do my crypto lesson for NCL in about 45 minutes. I let everybody know, hey, we're going to buckle down, heads down really quick. And I teach them how to identify numeric-based cryptography, but not like how to do the math or anything, because that's sort of, I feel like a waste of time when there's so many online tools. And then I teach them about, you can do encryption. So you can do substitution cryptography or you can do transposition cryptography. I give them a couple examples of that. I point them to my blog and I let them on their way. And my guys have never not gotten at least the easy and medium cryptography challenges, and they get most of the hard just from like that 45 minutes of let me teach you about numeric-based cryptography identification, which is basically take the highest number or letter that you see, subtract 1, that's your base number. I show them how to do that really, really quickly. I'm actually going to be uploading a video to my blog soon as I actually sit down and film it, of that 45-minute lesson, just so that it's super approachable. Like And that's what I try to do is you don't have to have a million skills with NCL. Like I just found out that in log analysis, you're supposed to use like Linux command line, and I'm not very good at Linux command line. So I popped it all into an Excel spreadsheet and filtered the data, and that's just data manipulation. And you have to do it however you're good at it. So for some people, if you want to reverse engineer the malware, that's fine. If you want to just kind of like break the code a little, like that's fine too. Whatever you can do that works for you, there's a lot of different approaches to all of the NCL challenges, and you got to find what works, because every student is a different style of learner. So I'm very visual, so command line is very difficult for me, whereas Excel, I can physically see the data moving around, and I know that, you know, I'm more sure of myself. Then again, some of the harder challenges, I can't always necessarily get every single answer on. Like I might get like 4 out of 5, and then that 5th flag just eludes me because, you know, I'm using a different tool than what it's intended.
Yeah, I understand. What I'm trying to say is Sam is got me thinking about this a little bit different. You don't really have to have in-depth understanding of what's going on. Your goal is just to solve the problem. And you're right, you use whatever tool that you feel more comfortable with. In Excel, I would agree with you. I know how to work Excel much better than a Linux command line. So, you know, I can agree with you on that.
Me too. That's what I use.
Do you?
Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. Our college, there's a professor here who teaches the Microsoft, the MOS classes. Are you familiar with those? So that's the, and he also has the students take the actual Microsoft exams for Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. And there are about 10 questions that are incredibly difficult, but he gets those classes filled every single semester. And students are getting jobs at hospitals and other places just as a result of that cert. But he goes into depth on things like data analysis in Excel, which I'm sure that's what you're doing, right? All those functions.
Yeah, I'm actually encouraging my schools to, I'm encouraging my schools to incorporate the Microsoft Office Specialist certification into their curriculum.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Because it's also like a starter, like a very, very like loose starter to the MTA certification. I think it's, I forget what that stands for. I think Microsoft Technical Assistant, but at least it's getting you more comfortable with like the Microsoft test versus the CompTIA test versus the certified. Like every single company that's putting out a test has a different testing style. So if you take the MOS, the Microsoft Office Specialist test, you're more prepared for the style of question that you're going to see in the MTA.
No, I will completely disagree. I was part of the beta program for MTA. I used to promote the MTA until probably about 5 years ago, and now I would not recommend the course. I recommend the courseware, but not the exams. That's my opinion.
Kate, is this the high?
I haven't taken
Kate,
it
is this the high school?
Yeah, at the high school.
Kate, is this the high school? So you're having them go after certification at the high school level, which is pretty cool. I really do think that we can see more of that going on in high schools.
Wait, so these
My high
students
schoolers are going to take the CompTIA Security Plus.
Wait, but you're having them take the MOS class?
I'm incorporating the MOS into, like, it's not currently incorporated in the curriculum, but I'm working on that because even if they don't go into cybersecurity, if they want to go into any field of tech, they need to be comfortable with the Microsoft Office, especially if they're just like help desk, or if they don't go into tech at all and they go, you know, into any office situation. Like, you really need to have those skills in today's job market, regardless of your industry.
Agreed. Yeah. Just to let you know, the MTA exams are typically multiple choice, A, B, C, pardon me, A, B, C, D, and they're anywhere, pardon me, they're anywhere between, I believe it's 30 and 35 questions.
That's all?
That's all. And the typical
question.
Oh, you don't even have to study. Typical question is, you need to connect a client wirelessly to a network, what would you use? A hub, a router, a switch, or a Wi-Fi access point? That's the level of questions, just to
Yeah,
let you
so
know.
because I work with high schoolers, it's a little different. I'm working with high schoolers, so basically anything they can do to help them going for colleges, if they want to go into this in any way further. An easy exam like that is going to give them the confidence when they go to take that CompTIA starting out. They're only getting 1 year with me, and then they have to go take the Security Plus. The first year in our program, they take the CompTIA A+. But like you're asking 17 and 8-year-olds to take, 2 industry certs plus the test out, skills guarantees, plus, I'm trying to incorporate the Microsoft. It's not going to happen this year, but in the future, I want to incorporate the Microsoft certification. So this is just any way that we can build their resumes, because they don't always have like previous job experience that's going to make them stand out. Most of them haven't ever had a job, and they're 18 years old. They're going to go out and apply for jobs in college, and they have no work experience. So what's going to make them stand out? Any certification, even if it's an easy certification that doesn't mean much. They took the initiative to go out and take that exam, and I think that'll help them stand out.
Here, let me put it to you this way. This is what a student came to me. The MTA exams are $125 or $150 each, unless your college school buys the voucher program. So I had a student take 2 or 3 exams. So they spent, let's say, $300 taking the exam. They came back to me and they said, okay, I've taken these 3 exams. Now what do I get? And yeah, they have the certification. The problem is no employer is looking at, cares, or for that much even knows about the MTA certifications. So, now I felt really guilty, because here this student spent a lot of time, took the exams, and they're not recognized by anybody. If they would have taken Security Plus, A+, one of the other more recognized exams, would have been less money and more credible in the industry. That really changed my point of view. And then once I started looking at the exams, I mean, out of 30 questions, I think I did the math on this. All you need to get are 19 right. And then it's multiple choice. So you're guessing 1 out of 4. So between guessing, getting questions wrong, I think you only really need to come up with 12 correct answers and then guess at the rest. And statistically, you should pass. It makes no sense to me. There's little value to it. That's
See, I'm a different kind of student, though.
Okay.
And a lot of my students also have the same issue as me. Test anxiety is huge, and being terrified to go out and take your exam. That's why I don't currently have my Security Plus. Like, I'm getting it this year. I'm taking the exam. I'm scheduling it now. And I'm more than prepared for the exam, but I'm terrified of the testing process. So for me, taking a banked easy exam like that, whether I put it on my resume or not, gives me like, okay, I did this, now I can do this. And like, it's just kind of like building up the difficulty rather than like jumping in for like what's most important. I think that, being a little brave is easier than being a lot brave all at once.
So go out and get the Transcender and use that as a practice test. If you can pass Transcender, you'll be able to pass the actual exam.
Okay, so we have a message in the chat room from Herring C6714. We did this a few years back, and the high school students had 100% pass rate on those. We have the vouchers. MTAs are pretty easy. Our juniors focus on CompTIA, A+, in senior year. They can take 4 college-level classes on campus. It seems to me that it's clear that you can start doing this stuff way before college, both the competitions and the certifications. Do you have students that have competition anxiety? You've mentioned the test anxiety, but Kate, Stephen, have you seen students freeze up in the competitions the way they would freeze up to take a test?
Yes. Yes, we do see that, especially in our junior level dual credit courses. The first year that they're in the program, we still introduce them to the NCL, the very first class, and they have no experience unless they've done it on their own. So it's a little intimidating. We have the senior class work with those junior level classes, and the science teacher at the high school is kind of their coach. So we try to use Caitlin as an example. Her talking about how she scored the first time she was in the NCL has helped our students. I'll tell you, Caitlin, it was very good because students find out it's okay that you can't solve all those problems. Trying to tell my experience, the first time I did the NCL, I was not too good, and even with experience. So I think it's okay. You're learning. That's the whole thing. The purpose is you learn by experience with the NCL.
I can have the opposite answer to that. So anybody that I've coached has never froze up on the thing. And I think that's due to a couple of things. I think first and foremost, like you said, Stephen, I tell them about my experience, and I tell them, I messed up so bad my first competition, but I grew so much so quickly that I was noticed by a lot of recruiters because of that. But I also tell them, I think I posted on it one of my blogs, I don't compete against other people. Like, it's really nice when I rank well, but I'm only competing against me and against growing my own skill set. So the very first time they compete, I tell them if they can capture one flag, I'm so proud of them. And that's all that matters in the whole wide world, because it's going to tell me where they are and where they need to get. So they know going into it that there's no pressure to succeed. And if they absolutely fail and do horrible, there's no penalty. It's not a grade. I grade them on did they do their best, and I know all their skills. And then the teams that I coach at the colleges, they all feel prepared because I show them pictures of the environment. I show them what it's going to be like. I tell them, this is kind of those out. And then I go to my worst section. And when I get really tired of working in my work session and I feel like I'm doing terrible, I'm going to go back and get some of those open source easy flags. And I'm going to move back and forth between really, really hard and really easy. And you know what? If I bomb a competition, right? Last season, I ranked in the top 100 overall, in the top 50 in the gold bracket. And I'm so proud of that. If I bomb and do so much worse this season for some reason, that's not a reflection of me. That's a reflection of the competition growing. So I'm not really measuring myself against anyone else. And I make sure that everybody I coach understands that. Because your scouting reports that you're going to provide a supplemental, it doesn't matter where you ranked. It matters, how much you did, and it matters how much you grow. And if you give them 2 back-to-back scouting reports with your scouting report ranks going up every season, that's going to stand out way more than I'm in the top 100 competitors every season. That doesn't mean anything. It means that you stayed in the same spot. So I think giving them that lens, none of them are worried about it. They go in, they have a good time. We make sure that we have some friendly competition within the group. Everybody checks on everybody else because we do kind of wellness checks. Because my first couple of competitions, I would forget to eat and sleep and drink water. And now we have a snack station. So little things like that, I think we've just made it this fun game.
So putting it into a class means that it's part of the grading for the class usually. But a competition itself, as you mentioned, is different in that it's really an opportunity to gain experience. When someone takes a test, it's always what grade did I get? When someone at the end of a class, gets their grade, that's how they measure themselves. But that's not really how you measure yourself in a competition, as you mentioned. So how much is NCL weighted in your class? Is it 10% of the grade? Do students start to think, oh, what grade did I get on NCL?
No, I make it just I make it worth 1 quiz grade, and that's basically, did you participate to the best of your ability? If they didn't do anything in open source, I know my guys know open source, then you're going to get a couple points off. And you know what, you're basically, if you show up on the Saturday that you're supposed to show up and you compete when you're supposed to and you're there and you're working on it, even if you only capture one flag, I'm not going to give you a bad grade, because it's not about the grade. It's about the experience, and it's about like time management, and it's about dedication. Like, you have to remember to do this on the weekend, and like high schoolers do not want to do this on the weekend. And really for the college, I feel like it's about the camaraderie. Like, some of my best friends are my teammates.
I'm really glad you look at the broader part of that. Stephen, do you have students that ask you about their NCL grade?
Well, they know right up front that for the individual, they get counted just like Caitlin. They get counted for like one quiz, and then for the team competition, they get it. Every team member gets the same as the quiz. So they get 2 grades for the competition. All the labs and the preparation work, they do get graded on those. That would be comparable to a lab grade. And one of the things we've done is opened our labs up to the students year round. And I've had several students in the summertime coming to the labs, not even taking any classes, but they're coming to the labs to practice. And I asked them why they were doing this, and they said, we're getting ready for the NCL. And so it's a good motivator as well.
I love that.
So when you
also the way I run my practices, I think. Sorry. I think the way I run my practices also helps with that attitude. At the college, we have 2 days a week for 2 hours that I'm going to be in the lab, and I don't have a specific plan in mind. We have sample challenges based on previous challenges and stuff like that. And everybody can work on whatever they want to work on the entire time they're there. They're not required to show up. I only take attendance because I have to report how many people were in the lab. But like, it doesn't matter if you show up one time or you show up to all 20 practices. I'm not going to give you, better or worse advice, but I tell people, you're only going to do as well as the effort you put into it. So most people are there as many times as they can be. Like, they'll skip one practice and they'll like text me to let me know, like, I'm missing practice, but I have this really good reason. And I'm like, no, like, I don't care. Like, you're missing out, and that's your choice. But also, I let everybody work at their own pace. And what I like to do is I try not to answer any questions at all. I try to delegate the question to somebody that I know knows the answer, because it also builds their confidence. When I'm pointing, somebody who hasn't competed yet to help somebody with a skill they just learned the previous practice, like, they're gonna be so proud of themselves and feel so good. So really all I work on is like, I'll introduce the skills, but like, my guys already have it by their classwork in high school. And then in the college, they know this stuff. Like, it's in our curriculums, it's built into our programs. They know it and they know how to figure it out. It's really just about building their confidence. That's all I work on in practice, is making everybody feel like they can definitely do this. Like, there's nothing to fear.
Doug uses the analogy, it's like playing the piano, practice, practice, practice. And in a sense, you're helping them learn to play an instrument.
Yeah.
That's what we tell the students, that it's like anything else. It's like any sport or musical instrument. You're going to get better the more you practice, the more you do. And especially if you look at the areas that you need, like Caitlin was talking about, some of the areas that you don't do well in, then you can try to concentrate on those areas by and trying to get help. It also promotes a lot of teamwork. I see the students, and everything we have is online, but we have set up a Blackboard kind of a blog within for our cyber club, and those guys help each other, and girls help each other on questions that they have and areas they're weak in, and they get tips like going to certain websites or whatever.
That definitely, one of the things I do is I try to make team optional, and then I like talk it up hardcore as like the best part of the competition, because that's when we all get to hang out and eat pizza and work on it together, so you're not alone. And like I prepare them for the regular season, but I mad talk up postseason so that everybody's just like, I got to compete in regular season so that I can like hang out with my friends when we do team.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a challenge online with the students from we have students from all over the U.S. and so trying to generate that team camaraderie in a virtual or online environment can be a challenge sometimes. But we, like I said, we try to use tools and use the Blackboard, collaborate and stuff like that, and go-to meetings, Zoom, and go ahead.
Do you think that learning how to work together online in itself is a very important skill for students to develop? The fact that they have to get used to working with people they never see.
I definitely think it's useful. We have students that are a lot of non-traditional students, of course, at community colleges, and the Hewlett-Packard Rio Rancho Help Desk. We have several students from there, and those guys have shared their real life tools and experience with other students, which also is a good thing that a community college sometimes can do more than some other traditional institutions can provide. So it's really interesting to see the dynamics between these students in an online environment as well.
One of the things I do to help when we're collaborating separately, we of course we have a bunch of group chats, like we have Google Hangouts, we have Slack, we have GroupMe, we have each other's phone numbers. But the biggest thing I've done is I use Google Sheets. And as soon as the competition opens, I tell my team captains to put all of the questions in a spreadsheet. So each challenge competency area, so like cryptography, open source, network traffic, is its own like sheet in the spreadsheet. And then you put what the challenge name is in the first row, the question, the points, and then you have a column for every single person to put in their answers, and then you don't submit answers until you can get at least 3 people to agree on an answer. And that forces people to at least talk to each other. If like, oh, I got a different answer than you. Well, how'd you get yours? How'd you get yours? And then if only one person's finding the answer, they have to explain it to other people so that other people can put in they agree with the answer. And it kind of like having that like 3 people have to agree rule has helped when we're all like separately, like in our own heads, not in the same location, because it's not practical for us to spend, Friday at 1 p.m. to Sunday at 9 p.m. together. Like we all go home. And having that spreadsheet and that rule has increased our accuracy, as well as like forced us to work at least in pairs, if not, groups of 3 to 5, which is really nice when you can get everybody working together.
Have you taken a look at OneNote for Microsoft?
I've used it.
Do you
Not
use
for
it
NCL.
much? What?
I haven't used it for NCL. I've used it for sharing class notes, like
Right.
when you're taking notes in a class. But I haven't used it for NCL specifically because I just have kind of relied on spreadsheet. But OneNote would be effective if that's what works. Like I am big on saying that everybody has a different learning style and everybody's going to be effective in a different way. So if that's what works, then use that. We have a wiki, I think, that we use to like share notes too. Like we can post whatever we need to like keep track of things, sort of like a discussion board on Blackboard. If you set up like a page for each like competency area, then you're not filtering through all the notes. You're going, oh, I need to work on crypto. Let me go to the crypto page and look at the notes there.
Yeah, I have all my students use OneNote throughout the semester. And like when we're going through Wireshark or log files, there are certain commands or certain filters that you need. So I have them put just enough information in OneNote along with the filter so that 6 months from now, they can go back and find that specific filter or that log command, to find something in a log file. So I'm a big advocate of OneNote because of that.
Our students, like in general, just use a lot of Google Drive because it's incorporated into our curriculum that they all get Google accounts through the school, and then like I can see all of their stuff because it's in the shared class folder. With my college kids, I'm a lot more flexible because like they're college kids and I don't have to worry about them sharing inappropriate images in the notes.
So do your students all have free Microsoft Office subscriptions?
Yes.
Not for their home, not for my high school. So that's why we use Google Drive and
Okay.
Google Docs and things like that, because they do all have that subscription free through the school.
Okay, because OneNote is free and it's on Android, Mac, Windows, iPhone, iPad. It's like on every platform. And the great thing is that it syncs between devices. So if you don't want to share a notebook, or if you want to share a notebook, then you can make it for a class and open it up to everybody. The other tool that I'm curious if you use or if you've ever heard of, this is a presentation tool that Microsoft has that's called Zoom It. You familiar with that? Okay, so Zoom It allows, one of the features that it has is to be able to zoom in on a specific part of the screen. So if you're looking at a log file and you need to see the difference between a comma and a period, semicolon, punctuation marks, Zoom It just makes it so easy. And unlike the magnifier that's in Windows, it's Control-1 and escape. Control-1, you're in, escape, you're out. It's real easy to use. That's another tool that I have all my students use. And it's from Microsoft, so nobody should have any objection in terms of bringing in third-party software. Just a thought.
Is there a type of class that you think really fits NCL better than other types of classes? What is the name of your class where you use NCL?
For me, I teach the year 2 cyber tech. So year 1 is like the A+ certification, and year 2 is the CompTIA Security Plus certification. And it aligns so amazingly with my curriculum. Like I do no work.
And we use the same thing, CompTIA Security Plus and the ethical hacking class, which is the course right before they take their capstone. But actually every class has a requirement to participate in the NCL competition. But not all of them are tied to that curriculum.
We're actually trying it out this semester where the year 1 students are going to be taught by the year 2 students. And we're going to let the year 1 students compete because a lot of the kids are coming into security thinking it's going to be as hands-on as hardware, and it's a different type of hands-on and it's a different type of learning. Not to say that they can't all do it, but I think some of them weren't expecting the level of just like old school, fact memorization and textbook reading, that you can avoid a little with a hardware class. So I think giving them that opportunity before they come to year 2 to see what year 2 is going to be like is going to be really effective. But I think it's not only going to discourage the students who, that's not really what they want to do, and that's okay. It's going to encourage the ones who are on the fence and then go, oh my God, this is what I need to be doing. Because that's really what happened for me. I was originally a programming major and I wasn't really stoked, and I was only doing like C++ at the time because it was my first semester. And I was kind of miserable. And then I took one networking class, and like this really overexcited cybersecurity teacher was like, you're going to do NCL. And I was like, haha, no, I'm not. And then he paid for me to do it. And I was like, all right, I'll at least try. And I tried, and I did horrible, and I cried, and I thought I was too dumb to be in this major. And then I was just like, well, I only got 2 more games to get through this season. And I just started learning things. Like I was like, I'm not going to sit here and be the dumbest person in the room. Like I'm going to try to learn some things. And by the end of the season, like I had improved so drastically that the following season I was a team captain. In one season, that level of growth is totally possible.
We have a couple of questions about paying for the fee. So how do you address that? Is it part of taking the course? Is it something they have to pay outside of the course?
In our case, it's part of paying for the course so that they can get the financial aid for the course. At the high school, though, it's a little different. So we help, along with our foundation, to fund the high school students because the courses are free for our dual credit students.
My high school students, they last season, because it was like one cost per team, we paid for the team and they paid for their individual. And basically, like, if they paid for their individual, we knew they'd like show up. And then this season, because it's priced per person, it's just more than we had originally budgeted for the program. So the students are paying out of pocket, but I think it's something that we could build and grow, and hopefully, like I said, this is my first season teaching. So it's something that I would long-term love to just incorporate into the cost of the class. Like, even if it's just considered like a lab fee for the class, that's, you know, handled ahead of time and part of like the curriculum.
And then for the team fees, we pick that up for all the teams that participate. The school just picks that up. They don't have to worry about it in their, even as part of the cost of the courses.
I know Pace University has always paid for all of us for everything. And then Westchester Community College paid for everybody while I was there. I don't know what their current situation is. So I don't want to be like, WCC pays for it and then find out that they don't anymore for whatever reason. But if your school can find a way to pay for it, if you can find a way to apply for a grant or a scholarship or something to pay for it, it's not that expensive and it's definitely worth it. And even if you can only, you know, pay for the students who absolutely can't afford to pay it, I think it's $35 for the season. Like, it's the best $35 you'll ever spend. I can promise you that.
This has been a great discussion today. I think we'll be wrapping it up in a few minutes. Are there any last words that you have on making NCL part of your curriculum? Anything for the audience to think about if they have a course they think might fit, but they don't know about putting NCL into it? Any advice on putting the two together?
Go for it.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, then there's something in your curriculum that your students will gain an advantage from having competed. Because if you're not sure, there has to be something. Like, you would be absolutely sure that you should not do this if there was nothing in there. So if you're on the fence, just do it. Do it for one season and see how it goes. And I promise you're going to see really good effects if your students get into it. If you approach it with them the right way, it's going to help so much, especially when they go to apply for jobs if they have hackathon experience.
I would agree. And we do have on the resources tab on the NCL website, there's some resources you can look at to see how that might fit into a course through those syllabus that we have out there.
And in late March, I will be publishing on my blog, and I'm sure NCL will be linking to it, my workshop materials, which my workshop is called Noobsec to Cyber Champion, Hacking the National Cyber League for Success. It's basically about why it's the best competition for beginners and how to approach it as a beginner, because if you've never been in a hackathon, how do you even prepare? And it teaches like the soft skills, like breaking down like, oh, I'm stuck. Okay, but why are you stuck? And what can you look up to move forward? I don't believe in answering a student's question when they have questions. I believe in asking them questions until they can figure out what they need to do to learn it by themselves, which is a lot more challenging and it's like a lot more frustrating for the instructor, but I promise it has a really good effect on the students. And that's what I'm building my workshop around. So I'm basically like writing a guide on like how to do that with some specific examples from from previous NCL challenges.
Do you ever tell students to take a course of some kind before playing NCL, or is there really no formal prereq for NCL?
I didn't know how to turn on my computer my first season. Like, I always use this as an example. So we had to hit Control-Alt-Delete to log into our computers. And I thought that was one button, and I thought it was on the tower, and I couldn't find that button, and everybody in the class was making fun of me. And you know what? I still like jumped up like 400 rankings before I learned how to log into my computer. So don't tell me you don't know enough to do this competition. Literally no one signing up is going to be dumber than I was.
Stephen?
Well, that's true. As I mentioned, the first year students in our dual credit have never done anything in computing for the most part, and they participate. And I think there's no prerequisite for the NCL. I think it's a good option that you wouldn't even have to be in IT or have an IT major. In fact, it might be good for some of the other disciplines to actually to participate, and you can use Google as and answer a lot of the questions just by using Google.
Open source intel should be called Go Google It, homie. The way I test out if my lessons for NCL are effective is I have my best friend who can barely operate her cell phone and computer. She's a nursing major. I have her test out if my instruction is effective. If she can figure out the challenges after I've taught her to do it, then I know anybody else can. Not that she's not smart, she just has a different style of brain and doesn't really get technology, so.
We have one more logistics question. I was a fall coach, and now when I log on to spring 2018 will not populate. Do coaches have to register for each season? So do you find yourself having to re-register?
I never re-register.
No, but you can't get in until I think the season opens. If
I can log in and see my old scores, I think.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
But,
we haven't started registration for spring yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm able to log in, and then I can see my old competitions. I can see all the way back to spring 2017, even though I've been competing since fall 2015. So if you're in that section and you can see your old scores, then as soon as they open registration, you're going to be able to log in, and it'll have a register here, and you can register your students or whatever you need to do as a coach.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Stephen. Look forward to our next coaches call. Especially look forward to your upcoming presentation at WISES.
If you guys have more questions, you can absolutely hit me up on my blog or on Twitter. I know that sounds super cheesy, but there's a lot of InfoSec people on Twitter, and my Twitter is exclusively for InfoSec stuff and puppy pictures. Sorry about that. It's not InfoSec, but it's worth it.
Privacy pupper. Great.
Yeah, she has her own Twitter too. So.
She is cool. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.